my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. Today we have a lot of news to discuss for The Acolyte. Last night at the Disney Upfront event, Kelnaka, the new Wookiee Jedi, was publicly showcased. It was also really cool to see Carrie-Anne Moss looking badass as always, and we have a closer look at the lightsabers of the dark side Acolyte, as well as Jedi Master Soul. And notice how it's a cool shade of ice blue, instead of the traditional blue we get from most of the Jedi. I assume based on the trailers this is just the lighting. But as I say, my dear friends, today we have some major topics. Before we get into them though, if you're new, please be sure to hit the big subscribe button down below. It really helps to grow this amazing Star Wars Mandalorian community. And be sure to hit the notification bell to be alerted every time that I post a new video. But no more jibber jabber, let's begin. Star Wars The Acolyte is 3 weeks away, and Leslye Headland has just provided a statement which gives us a bit of hope. She's made a lot of comments which fans have disagreed with, but in the same way she commented about expanded universe stuff finally coming into canon, I'm very optimistic about this. She says she was inspired by the Clone Wars and one specific episode, the Wrong Jedi. Now this, in and of itself, tells us so much about the plot. The other day I broke down the new trailer, and I mentioned how I don't believe things are exactly as they seem. When it comes to the twins, they seem to be implying a mistaken identity kind of situation. And with this comes the very strong possibility that May the assassin is not the fallen Jedi who left the Order that the Council thinks she is. That is her sister. And the fact the showrunner admitted the Wrong Jedi inspired this show tells me there is more to the investigative theme than we think. Don't just take this surface level. And fans are very hopeful about this comment. That is such a fantastic episode of Star Wars animated TV. Ahsoka on the run trying to prove her innocence, Barriss Offee being the real culprit who orchestrated a horrendous attack on the Jedi Temple, and the Jedi Council just being so distrustful of her that she walks away. So I think the inspiration Headland took and the parallel between both shows is the flawed judgment of the Jedi and how it affects the innocent. And in essence, they're going after the wrong sister, but we don't know why the first one left the Jedi in the first place, and I think that is going to be very telling. But the stories of both are very much a question mark, and I think if Leslye Headland is serious about using the Wrong Jedi as a template, I'm hoping May has the brutality of Barriss when she turns to the dark, and using the framing of Ahsoka to her benefit. Is May hoping they accuse her sister, and the real culprit only being caught at the end? When the episode first came out, back in 2013, there was a lot to process. I would say it was one of the heaviest episodes of the Clone Wars period. And you know, when we're talking about the smugness of the Jedi reflected in both the Clone Wars and the Acolyte, I think back to Mace Windu's rather smug comment, "This was actually your great trial." And also the heartbreaking nature of when Ahsoka says, "The Council didn't trust me, so how can I trust myself?" And it seems clear that what she really means is how can I trust them? So as I've said before, Leslye Headland is not going to be kind to the Jedi. The showrunner is going to put on full display the heartless, dark underbelly of the Jedi Order. Contrary to the assumptions of the Jedi, she did not turn to the dark side. So this idea of the Wrong Jedi mistaken identity is going to be very central, and I'm actually very happy to hear this was one of Leslie's biggest influences on the show. And in terms of the Witch Coven, Leslye says it was inspired by the Night Sisters, but she didn't want to have them directly in the show, and both twins are from this group. Now I want to talk about something she said, which I'm a bit more conflicted about. There are some pros but also some cons to this approach. Let me read this to you, and I'm sure you'll see what I mean, but then I'll explain. She says, "We kind of ran a gambit. Let's reference Return of the Jedi here. Let's reference this holding cell based on a Clone Wars episode here. Let's have a cantina because I've always wanted one. I think when you get an opportunity to do a Star Wars and you're a Star Wars fan, the idea is to get in a lot of your wish list, and hopefully other people are excited by it too." I don't know about this. Let me explain. Allow me to be the Bendu, the one in the middle. I'm going to give you a nuanced take. On the one hand, it's fantastic that Leslye as a Star Wars fan is taking inspiration from the Star Wars projects she loves, utilizing and being inspired by elements of what came before. And to her credit, she said that while these things inspired her series, The Acolyte is like nothing we've seen, so it's going to stand out and it's going to be unique. To this extent, I think these comments are a great thing. However, my dear friends, and I will just preemptively say, we haven't had the show yet. There is no point bashing it or overpraising it, taking a strong stance until we've seen the show. But this strategy of what she's saying is very dangerous and a bit risky, especially when you're calling it a wish list. With all due respect, and with me being very much excited for what this show could have on offer, allow me to explain. We've had lots of Star Wars shows, whether it's Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, where it just feels as though the Easter eggs are horned in, and I don't feel as though they contribute to the actual story of the episode or the show and the substance of the plot. And to me that is more important, because this is exactly what fans talk about when they say Star Wars to a large extent has become just doing the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, just pointing because, oh look, that's a reference to the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, or in this case the Clone Wars series. Visual or dialogue poetry just for the sake of it. And I know George Lucas did very much the same thing, but there is a difference between symmetry of storytelling between his two trilogies, especially between father and son, Anakin and Luke, and then, in an unrelated project, just having a line of dialogue or a reference that just reminds fans of another Star Wars project. Just so that we as fans can say, oh look, she said the line. Just pay limitations. So when she's saying as a Star Wars creator and a fan, it's just about getting your wish list, I don't know how to feel about this. Your job is to tell and serve the Star Wars story. Having Easter eggs is fine, it's subtlety and it's finesse. But when you're littering the entire story with references to, I would say, better previous Star Wars, is that the best motivation? It's hard to tell because I'm not saying the story of The Acolyte is going to be bad. I'm excited to cover it, to see what it's all about, and I'm hoping it's everything it's cracked up to be. I guess what I'm saying is little nods that don't take away from the story. It doesn't have to be an extensive wish list of, here's everything I love in Star Wars and I want to see repeated in my show. The good news is this, when she was asked if it's going to be its own standalone show, instead of directly connecting to things like the Phantom Menace, she does clarify it has its own merit. So that gives me hope they're not going to, I guess, retcon any canon, and she said, quote, there is absolutely room for it to grow. I'm the kind of person where I want to make sure a season feels like a legitimately whole story. But she's saying she wants it to be all-encompassing, which is great. And here is a very fascinating question relating to how this show connects to episode 1, because characters like Yoda are still alive. Is the Acolyte going to demonstrate the reason Yoda said Anakin was too old to begin training? Are there parallels between the young girl, who might be May or her sister, and Anakin Skywalker, the protagonist of the Skywalker saga? The reason I say this is because some fans have pointed out, just like Anakin, this girl, when she's recruited into the Jedi Order from the witches, is much older than the canon age that Force-sensitive children are taken to be trained as a Jedi. They're usually taken to the temple on Coruscant as infants. As such, the flashbacks in the trailers depict May meeting Master Sol around the same age Anakin was discovered by Master Qui-Gon. And to this extent, there is an implication that when she leaves the Jedi Order and the Council thinks she turns to the dark side, maybe thinking she is her sister, that is the reason they assume inducting her into the Jedi Order at an older age was the mistake. And because Master Yoda is alive during the events of The Acolyte and the Phantom Menace, when he's looking at Anakin, he's thinking about what happened with May. This series is a cautionary story. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on everything we spoke about in today's video in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.